At midnight, the bells rang. Fireworks exploded over one of Europe's most recognizable skylines, sparks falling like confetti over stone centuries old. Crowds pressed together in celebration. Strangers hugged, music echoed off cathedral walls, and somewhere in the mass of bodies, a woman felt hands that weren't hers. Then another, then another. She tried to turn, she couldn't. She tried to scream, and no one heard. By the time the fireworks faded, hundreds of women would report being sexually assaulted, not in dark alleys, not in isolation, but in the open, surrounded by people. And in the days that followed, the most disturbing question wasn't what happened. It was, why no one said anything at all? This is A Veil of Crime. Tonight's story is about a crime that unfolded in plain sight. The city of Cologne sits along the Rhine River. It's known for its cathedrals, its Christmas markets, and its massive public celebrations. On December 31st, 2015, tens of thousands gathered in the square between Cologne Cathedral and the central train station, one of the busiest transit hubs in Germany. Police were present, but not in exceptional numbers. New Year's Eve crowds were expected, but not catastrophe. Alcohol flowed freely. Fireworks were illegal, but widely ignored. The square became increasingly dense. By later accounts, groups of men began forming loose rings within the crowd, moving together, dissolving, reforming. At first, no alarms were raised. Shortly after midnight, emergency calls began to trickle in. Women reported being groped, sexually assaulted, surrounded, and restrained, robbed of phones, wallets, and jewelry. Victims later described a pattern. One or two men would initiate contact. Others would close in. Hands were everywhere, and there was no clear escape route. Some women reported being attacked multiple times within minutes. Police later acknowledged that they were overwhelmed, not only by the size of the crowd, but by the nature of the assaults, which were fast, mobile, and difficult to isolate. By early morning, the square was emptied. Street cleaners moved in. Fireworks debris was swept away, and officially, the night was described as largely peaceful. In the immediate aftermath, Cologne police issued a public statement praising the night as calm. No mention of sexual assault, no warnings to the public, and no press conference. Meanwhile, women began going to police stations, not just in Cologne, but across the region. By January 2nd, dozens of reports had been filed. By January 4th, journalists began asking questions. Only then did authorities acknowledge that something unusual had occurred. Over the following weeks, the scale became undeniable. More than 1,200 criminal complaints, hundreds involving sexual offenses, the majority occurring on New Year's Eve, many concentrated in the same area near the cathedral. Public outrage followed swiftly, not just at the crimes, but at the delay. As details emerged, another layer of controversy followed. Authorities stated that many suspects were described as young men of North African or Middle Eastern appearance, some identified as recent asylum seekers. That detail, withheld initially, ignited political firestorms, accusations of media's suppression, claims that police downplayed the crimes to avoid inflaming anti-immigrant sentiment, and then counterclaims that the events were being exploited to fuel xenophobia. German media outlets openly debated their own coverage. Had caution become silence? Had fear of political consequences overridden public transparency? For many victims, the argument felt abstract. They had reported crimes, and they felt ignored. National investigations followed. Similar assaults were confirmed in other cities, though Cologne remained the epicenter. Cologne's police chief eventually resigned. Germany's federal government moved to reform sexual assault laws, shifting toward a clearer no means no standard of consent. But prosecutions proved difficult. In crowded conditions, identification was rare, evidence was limited, witnesses were scarce, only a small number of suspects were ultimately convicted, many on theft charges rather than sexual assault. For victims, justice felt partial at best. The Cologne assaults weren't just a crime wave. They were a test of policing in mass gatherings, of transparency under political pressure, and whose voices are believed and when. This case revealed how easily crimes can disappear when they don't fit expectations. They didn't happen in darkness. They happened under fireworks, and yet, for days, the official record said almost nothing at all. New Year's Eve is supposed to mark a beginning, but for hundreds of women in Cologne, it became a lesson in how quickly celebration can become camouflage and how silence can follow violence just as quickly. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe truth deserves time, context, and care, and if you want more investigations into crimes history tried to move past, subscribe to A Veil of Crime. Leave a review. It helps these stories reach further. And share this episode with someone who believes accountability doesn't end when the party does. Because crime doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes it hides in the crowd. I'm Rebecca, and this is A Veil of Crime.